This week, a fatal shooting by federal immigration agents in Maine sparked massive protests and reignited a national debate over ICE enforcement tactics. The incident is one of at least 21 shootings involving immigration officers since January, 10 of them deadly. We investigate what's happening, who's involved, and what comes next. On a Monday morning in Biddeford, Maine, a 25-year-old Colombian national named Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero was shot and killed by ICE agents as he left for work. According to federal authorities, the man attempted to flee in a vehicle toward an officer before being fatally shot. The Department of Homeland Security later confirmed he was not the subject of the investigation. Agents were conducting surveillance on another individual with a final removal order. 3 days after the shooting, the victim's widow, Carolina Rojas Alvarez, spoke publicly about the incident. By Saturday, more than 1,000 people gathered at Monument Square in Portland to protest the shooting and broader ICE enforcement practices. Protesters marched through downtown Portland in the rain towards Senator Susan Collins' office, calling out her voting record on immigration enforcement funding. A critical gap emerged in the investigation. No body camera footage exists. According to Senator Angus King, body cameras were not activated on the agents involved, leaving no video evidence of what occurred. Maine's Attorney General's office announced a state investigation, with the ICE agent placed on leave pending the inquiry. The Maine incident is not isolated. According to a Guardian investigation, federal immigration agents have been involved in at least 21 shootings since the current administration began its enforcement push in January. At least 10 of those incidents were fatal, a number that increased when the Maine shooting was added to the count. 1 week before the Maine killing, on July 7th, immigration officers shot and killed Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, a 52-year-old Mexican national, during a traffic stop in Houston, Texas. Like the Maine victim, Araujo was not the initial target of the enforcement activity. The pattern extends further back. In January, federal immigration officers shot and killed 2 U.S. citizens, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Minnesota prosecutors began receiving evidence from the federal government related to those killings the same day the Maine shooting occurred. The Department of Homeland Security acknowledged that neither the Maine victim nor the Texas victim was the initial target of immigration enforcement at the time of their stops. Yet the agency did not immediately provide further details about the circumstances surrounding either shooting. These incidents have drawn swift condemnation from the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and raised urgent questions about ICE training, protocols, and accountability. In response to the escalating pattern of deadly incidents, the Department of Homeland Security took a significant step. On Tuesday, 1 day after the Maine shooting, DHS ordered ICE to halt vehicle enforcement stops. This suspension represents a direct policy response to the fatal encounters in Maine and Texas. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus issued a statement on Tuesday condemning the agency. Representative Nidia Velasquez said, "An agency that acts as though it is above the law cannot be reformed at the margins." Representative Joaquin Castro went further, calling on Congress to disband ICE entirely, arguing the killings would continue otherwise. The halt on vehicle stops reflects growing pressure on federal immigration enforcement agencies as use of force incidents accumulate across multiple states. Unlike traditional law enforcement agencies, ICE agents undergo a different training regimen and operate under DHS authority rather than local or state jurisdiction, complicating oversight and accountability. The Minneapolis killings in January marked an early flashpoint, and the lack of immediate transparency from federal authorities drew criticism from state and local officials. The pattern of incidents involving individuals who were not the primary targets of enforcement operations has added to concerns about agency procedures and the need for stricter guidelines governing how immigration agents interact with the public. Beyond the shootings themselves, a parallel conflict is unfolding over which jurisdictions control police conduct and accountability. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the city attorney has refused a federal demand to exempt ICE from a local ordinance requiring law enforcement officers to display their identities. On July 17, City Attorney Evan Goik rejected the U.S. Department of Justice's demand in writing, stating his office will prosecute any citation for violations of the mask concealment ordinance. Goik characterized the ordinance as essential to public safety and accountability, arguing that masked, unidentified officers undermine the relationship between law enforcement and the community. Goik cited specific incidents involving ICE operations in Milwaukee, describing tactics including boxing in vehicles, pointing weapons, breaking windows, and pinning people to the ground, often with officers in unmarked vehicles and face coverings. He referenced the fatal shootings in Houston and Biddeford as examples of why identification requirements matter, writing, "The city and the public have a right to know if masked, armed, and unidentified men seizing people on our streets are who they say they are." The dispute reflects broader national tensions between federal immigration enforcement and local jurisdictions seeking to regulate police conduct. California has attempted similar identification requirements through state law, now tied up in federal court. Milwaukee officials have approved their ordinance as both legal and enforceable, setting the stage for a potential constitutional confrontation. At the state level, new formal agreements between local law enforcement and ICE are expanding immigration enforcement operations. In Wyoming, data reveals the scale of these partnerships. Between May 1st, 2025 and June 3rd, 2026, a 13-month period, Campbell County law enforcement transferred 87 people to ICE custody. The transfers involved 3 agencies. Wyoming Highway Patrol arrested 37 of those transferred. Campbell County Sheriff's deputies arrested 42, and Gillette Police Department officers arrested 7. All transfers were enabled by formal agreements signed in 2025. Campbell County Sheriff Scott Matheny signed a warrant service officer agreement in February, while Governor Mark Gordon authorized Wyoming Highway Patrol's Task Force Model ICE agreement in July. More than 2/3 of the 87 transferred individuals came from Mexico. The remaining transfers included people from Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Bolivia, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. In one documented case, a Guatemalan man was arrested for allegedly stealing his ex-girlfriend's phone and was transferred to ICE. The county jail generates revenue from these arrangements, holding ICE detainees at a rate of $80 per night. In Teton County, sheriff's deputies arrested 241 foreign-born people in just over a year. The most common charges were traffic violations rather than felonies, driving under the influence, and driving without a license. A federal lawsuit in Laramie County alleges improper handling of a traffic stop that led to an ICE transfer. This has been a deep dive from the American Star News. Full reporting on this story and the rest of the week's coverage is at theamericanstarnews.com. Subscribe for the next briefing.